On the evening of January 17, 1950, the employees at Brinks in Boston, Massachusetts, were wrapping up their day. They moved sacks of undelivered cash, checks, and other materials back into the company's safe on the second floor. But just before 7:30 p.m., their routine was shattered. 5 heavily disguised men emerged from the shadows, silent, methodical, and careful not to leave a trace. The thieves moved quickly, finding the employees and hauling away the loot with precision. Their plan was flawless. In mere minutes, they made off with over $1.2 million in cash and an additional $1.5 million in checks and securities. At the time, it was the largest robbery in U.S. history. And just like that, they vanished into the night, leaving behind one of the most infamous heists the nation had ever seen. The robbers hadn't been gone long when a Brinks employee called the Boston Police Department. Minutes later, law enforcement descended on the scene, joined quickly by FBI agents. Initially, investigators had little to go on. Interviews with the 5 employees revealed key details. Between 5 and 7 robbers dressed in Navy-style peacoats, gloves, chauffeurs' caps, and Halloween masks had carried out the heist. Their movements were precise, indicating months of meticulous planning and rehearsal. Somehow, the robbers had bypassed multiple locked doors to reach the second floor, where the employees were securing the day's collections. At gunpoint, the workers were forced to the ground, bound with rope, and gagged with adhesive tape. During the chaos, one employee lost his glasses, which were later found missing, one of many small details that puzzled investigators. At one point, a buzzer sounded, signaling someone attempting to enter the vault area. The robbers removed an employee's gag to ask who it was. Learning it was a garage attendant, 2 gang members moved toward the door, but retreated when the attendant walked away, oblivious to the heist in progress. The investigation yielded a few pieces of physical evidence: the rope and tape used to bind the employees, and a chauffeur's cap left behind by one of the robbers. The FBI also noted the serial numbers of 4 revolvers stolen during the heist, hoping they might later provide critical leads. The investigation quickly turned up the heat. Known Boston criminals were interrogated, and the pressure spread to other cities. From tenements near Brinks to underworld circles across the country, investigators searched for anyone who might know something. The FBI left no stone unturned. They interviewed current and former employees, questioned personnel in the building, and investigated anyone who had visited Brinks and might know its layout or procedures. Every effort was made to track the missing money. Brinks customers provided descriptions of cash packaging and shipping materials. Identifying marks on currency and securities were noted, and alerts were sent to banks nationwide. Despite their efforts, the trail was cold. But the investigators were relentless, knowing that somewhere, the answers to this audacious crime lay waiting to be uncovered. The Brinks case was front-page news. Even before Brinks, Incorporated, offered a $100,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the persons responsible, the case had captured the imagination of millions of Americans. Well-meaning persons throughout the country began sending the FBI tips and theories which they hoped would assist in the investigation. For example, from a citizen in California came the suggestion that the loot might be concealed in the Atlantic Ocean near Boston. A detailed survey of the Boston waterfront previously had been made by the FBI. A man of modest means in Bayonne, New Jersey, was reported to be spending large sums of money in nightclubs, buying new automobiles, and otherwise exhibiting newly found wealth. A thorough investigation was made concerning his whereabouts on the evening of January 17, 1950. He was not involved in the Brinks robbery. Rumors from the underworld pointed suspicion at several criminal gangs. Members of the Purple Gang of the 1930s found that there was renewed interest in their activities. Again, the FBI's investigation resulted merely in the elimination of more possible suspects. Many tips were received from anonymous persons. On the night of January 17, 1952, exactly 2 years after the crime occurred, the FBI's Boston office received an anonymous telephone call from an individual who claimed he was sending a letter identifying the Brinks robbers. Information received from this individual linked 9 well-known hoodlums with the crime. After careful checking, the FBI eliminated 8 of the suspects. The 9th man had long been a principal suspect. He later was to be arrested as a member of the robbery gang. One Massachusetts racketeer, a man whose moral code mirrored his long years in the underworld, confided to the agents who were interviewing him, "If I knew who pulled the job, I wouldn't be talking to you now because I'd be too busy trying to figure a way to lay my hands on some of the loot." In its determination to overlook no possibility, the FBI contacted various resorts throughout the United States for information concerning persons known to possess unusually large sums of money following the robbery. Racetracks and gambling establishments also were covered in the hope of finding some of the loot in circulation. This phase of the investigation greatly disturbed many gamblers. A number of them discontinued their operations. Others indicated a strong desire that the robbers be identified and apprehended. The mass of information gathered during the early weeks of the investigation was continuously sifted. All efforts to identify the gang members through the chauffeur's hat, the rope, and the adhesive tape which had been left in Brinks proved unsuccessful. On February 5, 1950, however, a police officer in Somerville, Massachusetts, recovered one of the 4 revolvers that had been taken by the robbers. Investigation established that this gun, together with another rusty revolver, had been found on February 4, 1950, by a group of boys who were playing on a sandbar at the edge of the Mystic River in Somerville. Shortly after these 2 guns were found, one of them was placed in a trash barrel and was taken to the city dump. The other gun was picked up by the officer and identified as having been taken during the Brinks robbery. A detailed search for additional weapons was made at the Mystic River. The results were negative. Through the interviews of persons in the vicinity of the Brinks offices on the evening of January 17, 1950, the FBI learned that a 1949 green Ford stake body truck with a canvas top had been parked near the Prince Street door of Brinks at approximately the time of the robbery. From the size of the loot and the number of men involved, it was logical that the gang might have used a truck. This lead was pursued intensively. On March 4, 1950, pieces of an identical truck were found at a dump in Stoughton, Massachusetts. An acetylene torch had been used to cut up the truck, and it appeared that a sledgehammer also had been used to smash many of the heavy parts, such as the motor. The truck pieces were concealed in fiber bags when found. Had the ground not been frozen, the person or persons who abandoned the bags probably would have attempted to bury them. The truck found at the dump had been reported stolen by a Ford dealer near Fenway Park in Boston on November 3, 1949. All efforts to identify the persons responsible for the theft and the persons who had cut up the truck were unsuccessful. The fiber bags used to conceal the truck pieces were traced back to their origin, containers for beef bones shipped from South America to a gelatin manufacturing company in Massachusetts. Investigators pursued this lead thoroughly, making detailed inquiries about what happened to the bags after their arrival at the company. Unfortunately, this avenue of investigation ultimately proved to be a dead end. Still, the discovery of the truck parts at the dump in Stoughton, Massachusetts, turned out to be a significant break in the case. It brought new attention to 2 individuals connected to the Brinks robbery, both of whom lived in the Stoughton area. With this finding, investigators' suspicions about these men deepened, marking an important step forward in the relentless search for answers.